Hey, welcome everybody back to Crypto's News. So I'm here with a guest that I've wanted to actually have on a show for some time for you. I can tell you're a great thinker, Juan. I first met you in person at an Acapulco last year where you were doing a debate between you and Roger Ver, who obviously is kind of in the headlines right now and tends to surface all the time. But it was really interesting. It was so telling about the history, about the way big blocks versus small block work, about censorship, about all things Bitcoin. And I just thought, man, I would love to have Mr. Juan on the show because Juan, obviously, you've been in the space for a long time. You're a researcher, right? You wrote for Bitcoin Magazine. Would you like to
Yes.
introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I started as a journalist out of Toronto, Canada, about 4 to 5 years ago. I learned from the people that started kind of. Okay, so Anthony Diorio, right? I met Vitalik down there. I learned Bitcoin from people that were like OGs back in the day, 5 years ago. And so it was very interesting. One of them is and ended up being the CTO for Shapeshift, and then a few others that started exchanges and stuff. So I just got lucky. It was like the right place, right time. And from there I started doing journalism, and I wrote for a bunch of different magazines. So Cointelegraph, Bitcoin Magazine, newsbtc.com. I wrote for Bitcoin.com for a while. Not anymore.
And then, what happened there?
My career was winding down, and then when the fork drama happened and the brand sort of marketing attack started to kind of become clear, I just definitely decided to step down from that. At that point, I was already kind of like not writing very often, anyways. And then I've had a YouTube channel for a long time. I have, as a whole, I probably have 500 pieces of content, independent pieces of content online right now. And yeah.
So, what got you started into working for Bitcoin Magazine, all these different publications, News BTC, and into crypto in general? What was kind of like your genesis in finding the space and getting involved?
Yeah, it's fascinating. When I heard about Bitcoin, I think around 2012, I was pretty broke. So it was like a libertarian podcaster, sort of philosopher type, and he talked about it. So I was like, okay, so I put a little bit of money in, and I ended up losing that money. But then like when the price went to 1,000, I started getting back in. And then once I started to go into these meetups, there was a big conference in Toronto called the Bitcoin Conference. I think the 2014 Bitcoin Conference. And Amir Taki, who's sort of like a kind of like a famous crypto anarchist type, he was there at this hackathon, and the guy coded up the foundation of what later on became Open Bazaar, which is like a distributed marketplace where you can sort of buy and sell things, and it's on top of Bitcoin and stuff. And that just blew my mind as a libertarian. I was like, whoa, this is incredible history making and stuff. So I just wrote down like a blog post and published it on like this bootstrap the blog on the internet, published it, and I got like 300 views, and I got a bunch of Twitter followers for it. I was like, oh wow, this is something that I can bring value to the space. And so I just started writing for one magazine, and then just kind of hopped around over the years. And that's how I became a journalist in this space. Eventually I started doing consulting with people, and now I help sort of like, private clients figure out their crypto security strategy and, advising and stuff.
That's insane. And I'm sure that covers such a wealth of things, but you have some of the experience to share it. So I think Open Bazaar is really cool. I was actually on Open Bazaar 2 days ago, just kind of checking it out again. And I just wanted to mention that people should totally check out Open Bazaar. I haven't been there I hadn't been there in a while. And I thought maybe part of the reason it didn't take off is because you have to download a client. So you have to download like a piece of software, but now you can basically put up listings and charge peer-to-peer for cryptocurrency, for selling stuff. You can sell stuff. So like kind of an eBay, I would imagine, but using cryptocurrency. And so it's
well, let's talk about that for a second, because it's fascinating to wonder why, we've been around this space for about 10 years now, since Satoshi kind of published the white paper. So let's say like 7 years of actual sort of, maybe more people getting in and stuff. And in Open Bazaar, if Open Bazaar is not getting that much attention right now, then we must have some false assumptions, right? I think for Open Bazaar, it was pretty obvious from the start that they started blocking Tor. If you want to do, so it's always, as to my knowledge, it's always blocked Tor. And so if you want to do censorship resistant trading, but you block Tor, then you're cutting off your clientele, right? And obviously, this guy's an American. He's really funny. He has got a hilarious YouTube channel you should go find. but it's already there. There's a contradiction in the idealism. Okay, I want to do censorship resistance, but I'm gonna cut off Thor because it's too risky.
It's
And
something we
so,
see all the time, man. Like even Eric Voorhees, right? And he has to bow down to the regulators in initiating KYC into Shapeshift as well. But it's like now it's hard for me to completely like just be open, even when I read his tweets, even though obviously he still spouts like anarchist ideals or freedom ideals. But it's like, but you kind of gave away everything. Like, I don't know, you bowed down to it. It's
yeah.
something you see, this weird hypocritical nature of
Well,
people kind
I
of
don't
having to
blame
be
him.
sure.
I almost don't blame. I don't blame any of them in a sense because I don't know that I'd be willing to take that kind of risk either, right? Like we always knew, like at least I always knew, and I talked about it in this sense that Shapeshift was centralized and there was better, like lower risk for the users than normal exchanges, but it was always centralized, and I always knew that it was going to get hit, and they did get hit, and that's why I've always been kind of like a fan of atomic swaps and stuff because that's the only way to do it trustlessly. Even though in that world there's also a variety of interesting kind of like contradictions, but at least it's the only real path to it. I think.
So could you define what an atomic swap is for people who might not know?
Yeah, so an atomic swap is this sort of it's a kind of smart contract that you can do on top of Bitcoin and any derivative of Bitcoin, pretty much, which allows you to trade across two blockchains atomically. So you don't have to have a third party securing the transaction. The attack vector is if you and I want to trade Bitcoin for Litecoin, I don't trust you, you don't trust me. The person that sends the transaction first is trusting the other to also send the transaction, the other asset back. And so if you send it to me and you don't trust me and I'm a thief, then okay, thanks for your Bitcoin, peace, and I take your Bitcoin and my Litecoin. And so with atomic swaps, it uses kind of like a 2 of 2 multi-signature. So we both lock our coins in multi-sigs, and there's a time lock thing, and then there's like a special secret thing that's shared, and it's magic, man. Look it up, and it's very solid, old sort of science, old computer science sort of strategy, and it's been kind of adapted to the crypto world, and it works, and it's been known to work, and there's been a lot of tests of it working. The only barrier really is there's no, the ease of use is complicated. It's sort of like Lightning in the sense that you have to be online through the whole process right now, or trust somebody to be watching the transactions while you're online, because it's all on-chain settlement, right? So maybe in the future it'll become easier. Right now it's only really useful for like super paranoid, hardcore, edge cases, right? And that's kind of like where the reality of this market is. It's a lot of Western companies trying to market Western clients who don't need the services. The people that need these services are in Venezuela. They're in countries that are in civil wars, and who has the balls to go and try to start up some crypto projects there, right? That quality of character, and it's not to sort of say that people don't have that kind of grit, but I'm not seeing them right now. The projects that are happening like that in Venezuela are coming from Venezuelans, and and to some degree the Dash community seems to have been doing significant outreach down there, and Bitcoin.com has done some outreach. I just saw a new website called Bitcoin Venezuela, who have been teaching for a long time. So there's people that are doing it, but a lot of these sort of projects in the crypto space, in Ethereum and in the West, they just seem to me, after 10 years of hanging out with libertarians, they seem to me like science fiction projects that are a little bit unrooted from the real world,
It's interesting because actually when we were tweeting and I was asking you what's something you're kind of interested or you find a hot topic right now, you said that you felt like Ethereum and to a lesser extent Bitcoin had lost kind of that part of their original passion. What did you mean by that, Juan?
Yeah, so I watched Amir Taki, who, I mean, I don't know if people know him anymore in a sense because he's been gone for like 2-3 years, but he was sort of like a firebrand style he carried the sort of anarchist spirit in Bitcoin for a while because he was an early Bitcoin developer, and he was the guy, to my knowledge, that was involved in setting up WikiLeaks with Bitcoin back in the day, which is why Satoshi Nakamoto left. And so this guy has had a critical influence in the history of Bitcoin and its growth, right? And Satoshi was like, well, I think this is too early. We don't want to poke the beehive. And Amir was like, no, we got to use this thing. It's time. And so WikiLeaks has started accepting it. And then,
yeah, because WikiLeaks got cut off right from credit cards, from PayPal. The government tried to literally just cut them off, but Bitcoin existed by that point.
Yeah, that's right. So at that time, WikiLeaks got cut off from all payment processors, and so they had no way of receiving donations from funds. That was because they released some leak about something important in some, who knows exactly. I can't remember exactly the story, but so Bitcoin, they started stacking up Bitcoin, and 5 years later they are basically rich in Bitcoin. They have like a massive Bitcoin war chest now. So that changed history, for the rest of for the century basically. So because WikiLeaks is one of the biggest, most influential sort of journalism organizations. So anyway, so he was around, and but then he left, and he went to like Rojava to do some anarchist project. So he was at DevCon 4, and I heard him and Vlad Samfir, who's basically number 2 in Ethereum, talking about kind of like the ethos and the why of Ethereum, and the why this stuff matters, and how to not fail, and basically like after being in this kind of niche political environment for 10 years, when I hear anarchist arguments, I am often unimpressed, and because I see like 10 steps ahead, and I think there's a sort of there's a problem in that philosophy, in a sense, the way we talk about it right now. So if you look at Bitcoin Cash, pretty much 100% anarcho-capitalists. So you had all the leaders of the anarcho-capitalism. You had Roger Ver, the guy from the Pirate Party, and then yeah, Rich Falkvinch, right? And then a bunch of other libertarians. A lot of the people that I know that are friends with kind of like have like a variety of them forked there, and then some of them came to Bitcoin, went harder into Bitcoin. Jeff Berwick was kind of ambiguous about it, but supportive. So that kind of, there's a cultural thing there. I think the problem is that if we want to, what does success really look like? That is the question that we need to really consider. What does success really look like? To me, success, like, I don't think we're gonna kill the banks. I think that's silly and naive. You don't kill the banks, because the banks are people in places doing finance, and we all live in the same world, and we're gonna still be in the same world 50 to 100 years from now. So what I think really Bitcoin is for, and out of these cryptocurrencies, let's just start with Bitcoin because it's the easiest. Bitcoin takes the power of the financial system, takes their power over the money supply, removes their power to manipulate the money supply. That's huge, because then we don't have to deal with arbitrary inflation of fiat currency, and how different governments can like fund military infrastructure and wage war on other countries, at the expense of the economy, their host economy. So if people can exit to a hard money that can't be hyperinflated at will by political parties, that's a huge deal. The second thing is that it takes away the financial, like the bankers' control over the accounting system, so we can audit their accounting. Huge, right? Absolutely, just straightens the financial system. What they're left with is excellent infrastructure. Like, they have some of the best real estate in the world, 100 years of customer service experience, and a lot of knowledge about financial services. And so let's bring them on. If we can get them to sell Bitcoin for us, that to me is success. And that's where we're going with some stuff like Backed and all these sort of institutional services. People are used to the banking services as you walk into a place, somebody like walks you through all this sort of technical minutia you don't need to know. You sign a paper, you got service, and it's custodial. I don't want it to be custodial. I want everybody to hold their own private keys. I want everybody to run their own Bitcoin node. But it seems like the direction we're going in is going to be custodial. And I think the thing that we need to defend there is people's ability to withdraw the funds from these custodial services and hold it their own. And we need to teach. And that's like, in my world, my idea of success would be everybody holds their own money. The path that we're going is going to be a mixed strategy where you can claim your sovereignty if you want it. And we need to make sure that that's easy for people and that we can educate them on it. But yeah, I think
that's a great answer, man. And I have to say, I agree with you, man. Even and what we want, right, is different from what actually would be reality. Because I don't think my grandma's going to care about private and public keys or whatever it is. So I mean, we all use this as money. And I totally agree about the education, about setting up and holding people's wallets. Some people do want institutions to set them up and do the hard work for them. So, and providing the services, which you're right, they have years of experience handling. So that's an interesting take on it. But do you feel like maybe we're opening the doors up to manipulation here? there, maybe fractional reserves, maybe some of the Bitcoin that they have is in fact held by them, backed by Fidelity, but then they decide, even though that's not immediately going to happen right now, they've said, but maybe in the future they decide to leverage what they have, lend out more than they have to people. Maybe they do the same thing, right? Like when the blacksmiths realized that only at max 30% of people ever wanted the gold inside of the vaults, so they could just lend out extra gold. Do you see that happening with Bitcoin? And also, do you think that there's a possibility it's already happening with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies on exchanges that exist?
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility that's already happening in exchanges. It's a very risky thing because there's nobody at the end of the day that can bail them out. So they are literally risking their whole operation. In the current financial system, if they fail, they get bailed out, and they've been bailed out multiple times. With Bitcoin, there's nobody to bail you out. So if you're doing fractional reserve and you make bad investments and you don't have the money to supply it, and there's a run in the bank, then you're basically fucked, right? This is a very interesting question. It's a difficult question. Max Kaiser recently interviewed Trace Mayer. They were at the Crypto Spring conference in Florida, maybe.
Oh man, I love listening to both of them. That must have been sick.
Oh, they're fantastic. So Trace Mayer is basically one of the early OGs, like old school cyberpunk, and he's basically kind of like he's a crypto gangster in a sense, not in a bad way. I just like in a sense like he really knows his shit. He's very good strategically. Anyway, you got to listen to his work. He's got a Bitcoin knowledge podcast on his own website. Interviewed the top people, profound interviews. Absolutely. One of the best educational resources. So his answer to Max Kaiser, who's also like an old school trading sort of finance expert, he's got this show on RT for years, been pumping Bitcoin for since like $1. He's been talking about Bitcoin, and his answer was something like, "Well, I'm not worried about it. One of the reasons is we can fork them. So if you create, let's say that they're holding Bitcoin, right, and then we don't know if they're full reserve. Well, we can create a fork of Bitcoin, pump it, and then and try to get people to get them to give them the fork coins, or we can deposit Bitcoin and withdraw it, and we can see if it's like if it sends like to do like basically withdraw the fork coin from their accounts if they don't support the fork, and you can actually audit exchanges in a sense by forking them. It's a weird thing. It happened with Coinbase, and it happened with exchanges during the Ethereum and ETC forks. I can't at the moment. It's not clear in my mind how exactly that works, which is why I say you should go listen to him because he explains it better.
Oh man, so hyped early on. I remember I used to drive before I even started making podcasts to work and just listen to Trace Mayer's podcast. You guys should totally check it out. And the way he speaks about network effects, Mayer multiples, when to buy, when to get out. And I actually had him on this channel too. You guys should check that interview out. And he predicted a huge long cold winter, and he's laughing this off. He's exactly where we expected. Well, we're exactly where he had expected we would be right now. And I'm not gonna lie, if I had to trust anybody's long-term views, it'd probably be Trace Mayer, who's giving away Bitcoin to everybody when it was 25 cents. He definitely got behind this. Yeah,
absolutely. He's one of my top people that I sort of pay attention to what they're saying. What their opinions are.
Yeah, and so you answered kind of the Bitcoin side of things and the loss of the original vision there. Do you have a different response for Ethereum? Because Ethereum is meant to be, a world computer, and it was also kind of touted as being an immutable ledger that can't be changed. So maybe you have some thoughts about Ethereum Classic and maybe the shift that's happened since then, or just some other perspective, Juan?
Yeah. So my answer before was much more general than just Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin has much more clarity about what it is. I think after the fork, Bitcoiners, Bitcoin is hard money moving towards scalable currency and super trying to beef up anonymity. That's basically the three values, and that's what we're gonna do. And like it or not, that's what we're gonna do. But with Ethereum, what is a world computer, and I don't understand what Ethereum is doing fundamentally, because and I'll give you two things that we can maybe discuss around it. So one of them is the user experience of these tokens is unbelievably it's unsurmountable. People are not gonna get noobs to buy Ethereum in order to buy the token so that they can pay you with the token for the service that they actually want. Nobody's gonna do that. I'm not willing to do that. Like that's silly. Like there's this company called Expertly, who I like them. So far it's good. They want me to be a consultant in their service. They hook up users to experts, and you pay per minute and stuff. But the user experience is you gotta pay with Ethereum or credit card to buy the token, and then you pay with the token, and then that it all happens in platform. You just get rid of the token. Like just hide it. If these things are security tokens, okay, treat it as a security token, give people equity, boom, you got a security token. The utility token model is broken and it's probably dead. And maybe there's a way to abstract it behind the interface so people pay with the currency that they trust, and then in the background it buys it and then moves it and sells it. If that works, great. I don't care.
I covered that kind of yesterday because Bancor, I don't know if you've researched Bancor at all. They came out with Bancor X. And so they have this intermediary token, of course, BNT token, but it allows you to swap between EOS tokens and Ethereum tokens. You have this token in the middle. For that kind of use case, I could totally see it because you would basically have a smart contract working on both sides using this token and keeping track of that until we have something like atomic swaps, perhaps we have to have these kind of makeshift uses. Plus, I think you're right. Utility tokens haven't mostly been used for the right reason, but I think fungibility tokens are pretty cool. The RC721 collectible tokens. Do you have any thoughts about those being unique tokens?
So hang on a second. We already have atomic swaps. We already have atomic swaps inside of Ethereum across Ethereum blockchains and forks. That it already exists. There's no reason why you need to have an intermediary token to swap. I mean, I don't know Bancor. I don't know what they're doing with the economics. This is the problem with private currencies, because that's basically what these utility tokens are. They're private currencies. I have no idea what their supply strategy is. I don't know. I have no idea whether they're like proof of authority or what they're basing their security on. Right? Do they have backdoors that are publicly known, but I just don't know about them? I have no idea. And so I don't have time to look that up. I trust Bitcoin and I trust Ethereum as a currency. You know, I trust it enough that I will use it. And so let me just use the currency thing. But you know, maybe this is more a service for traders and experts. And so fine, that's fine if it works for them. But this is a major user experience problem that if we don't solve, we might not get anywhere.
So you're interested in Ethereum as a currency, but also Bitcoin.
No. Yeah. No, I don't really think of Ethereum as a currency because it's not really trying to be private. This is why I say that I'm confused about Ethereum's, like, what Ethereum is supposed to be. Maybe Ethereum's token as a utility token itself, maybe that'll work as a utility token. You know, it's a commodity that you use to fuel the smart contracts. That's, you know, it's how you create gas. Or it's pegged to gas, and it's a commodity used to make smart contracts run. Okay, that's fine, you know. But then what are these things actually being used for? I don't know. I do like non-fungible tokens. I'm a big fan of like Pepe Cash, and like the CryptoKitties are cool, and I love anything that's art in crypto. I'm a big fan, and yeah, so I think that stuff has utility, and there's probably, like, we don't know what there's probably all kinds of, I don't want to get into the way of innovation, but I think it's good to, like, you know, we gotta solve this usability problem.
So I'm sure we all kind of were at some point a Bitcoin maximalist. At what time did that change for you? Was it Ethereum that did it for you? Was it something else? And why did you expand your scope outside of perhaps Bitcoin?
No, so I started with Bitcoin in 2014 professionally. And then I saw Ethereum be born, and so I was like, okay, Ethereum is interesting, and so I just started talking about Ethereum, and then I started seeing altcoins, and then I went on a 3 to 4 year tour of the altcoin space. I can tell you the family history of 80% of the coins. I can tell you side stories about them. I know how to find the deeper drama. Like I've done the tour.
Tell us about Dogecoin. What's up with Dogecoin?
Dogecoin is hilarious, man. It's the only other meme coin that's sort of really big. So there's about 3 meme coins that I know of: Pepe Cash, CryptoKitties, and Dogecoin. I don't know. Dogecoin is fascinating.
Yeah,
it was a joke. Yeah, anyway.
I'll field some here from the audience. Anything? Okay, everyone asks me about VeChain because I never cover it. Apparently I'm prejudiced, but I can only cover definitely not 85% of all coins, but as many as I can. It's not one I covered. Do you have any thoughts about VeChain?
Yeah, so VeChain is an interesting one. They're apparently have very big sort of VC backers, like big names, early Facebook VC backer, I believe. They are allegedly partnered with like a variety of accounting firms, like big accounting firms that do basically supply chain kind of management for major products. They have a lot of Asian sort of investors, Asian engineers and teams, and so they're pretty big. I actually helped a client jump to a variety of hoops. It's really funny. It's basically like my experience of it was that it's just this, that they're trying to do supply chain, but they have like a very kind of gamified investor sort of experience. And so like you had to grab the coins, move them over here, lock them, sign a thing, and then if you have enough more than this, you get this node, and it's a high tier node. And if you're old school, you high tier node X, and then you get more rewards. And there's like 2 coins. It's a total like economic bureaucracy built on crypto with all these sort of gamified incentives. I mean, I helped my friend because he's my friend. I love him, but it's I don't know exactly where they're at as a business. They're trying to do supply chain authentication and management.
It's more than I know, man. Thank you. All I knew was supply chain, so definitely more. But okay. Before I answer some more of these tokens,
I think they're a fork of Ethereum. I'm pretty sure they're a fork of Ethereum.
Well, actually, let's jump to Tron then. Is Tron a fork of Ethereum? A plagiarized Ethereum? What's up with Tron? What's your story around Tron? Are you a fan?
No, no. I mean, I can appreciate the sincerity of the guy in a sense. Like he didn't even build anything. He's just okay. Well, this is a marketing space, so I'm just gonna go hard on marketing. You know, got published on like mainstream media outlets for like Forbes 30 under 30 super people or something, and like just build a ton of hype. Launched at the ERC20, and now and then bought BitTorrent. That's fucking cool.
That is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
I have no idea what their blockchain network is gonna do. I have pretty low faith on most blockchain networks, but.
Do you think that's like a trend that's happening now? That there was a lot of hype and maybe a lot of bag holders, people holding tokens or whatever you want to call it, are just still holding on to that hype? Or do you think a lot of these projects are going to deliver, and where this heads?
So at DEF CON, I didn't actually enter the DEF CON conference itself, but there was a bunch of like side events. So like there was like 3 parties every night and 5 meetups every night, every day throughout the whole week. And so I went to a bunch of parties, and then I went to a bunch of meetups. And one of the meetups was about community managers, and these guys are the people that are like the admins of the Telegram groups, where they got all the customer experience questions and all the users like how does this work? How does that work? Like they're on the ground, they're actually dealing with the users. And he basically drew out a chart where he said like it's a small circle, and that's the developers, as a medium-sized circle, which is the users, and then a bigger circle, which is the token holders. Says this is the empirical reality of most tokens and their communities. There's less users than there are token holders. Most of the token holders are not users. And I can't remember what your question was, but that's an important.
I was asking if you think that the hype. Okay, we had a lot of hype for coins like Tron. Do you think that a lot of these coins are pretty much going to die away and stop being used? Maybe as people sell those tokens, become less token holders, or do you think a lot of these projects are going to deliver what they're trying to do?
I think they're trying. I mean, I could imagine them like a variety of them trying to. Like when you're the guy the CEO of Tron, you're pretty public. You have enough money. You bought BitTorrent. Like he played it smart. You gotta. I think that's respectable. Is he gonna deliver anything? I don't even know what he's trying to do with Tron. I honestly have no idea. I think it's probably going to take time, Any new blockchain network is 4 years of development, basically, and then maybe you launch and nobody cares, right? Like, look at Augur, right? How's Augur doing, right? Huge fan. I bought it at the ICO, and then I later traded it, and then I bought again right before it launched, and the price just went, right? And I mean, maybe they'll catch on, and I really hope that they do, because I like the idea, but
for the election, apparently there was a lot of use. The market for the House, Senate, Democratic, Republicans. So they seem to be finding a use.
Yeah, and by the way, let's have a conversation about this. I know that I'm like bearish and I'm making critical arguments, but if you know, because you were there, you were at the conference, you experienced the hype, you experienced the press releases and the announcements and all that stuff. So tell me, like, maybe you can help me sort of getting more informed about what is it that excites you about Ethereum. What do you see that sort of? Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what you see. and I'm happy to keep talking too.
I think what's most exciting to me is to see the experimentation that happens with Ethereum. Arguably, Bitcoin it's Bitcoin, where we have so many developers trying different things, different smart contract protocols, trying to universal login to see how we can make the switch between different tokens work and logging into different sites. I think it's extremely exciting to see really brilliant minds all coming together to explore this together and creating what looks like an ecosystem, because pretty much everybody you talk to, if you were at the conference, seemed to have been familiar with many of the other projects that were there and were interested in partnerships. So I don't know what that looks like long term, but it seems like a pretty healthy foundation to me, at the very least for experimentation. But I'm also deeply interested in wondering how this whole proof of stake thing happens, right? Like is this going to work? Is it not? So actually, I want to ask you, Juan, what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about proof of work, proof of stake, and delegated proof of stake? Because a lot of people are also interested in EOS, which very well could be, easier. You don't have to pay fees, which is probably something easy for people to wrap their head around. So we're used to the way that we get things for free right now, or seemingly for free. What do you think about these different proof of work algorithms? Maybe even if you've heard about DPAL or any of these thoughts.
So I have not heard of a DPAL, but I am fairly familiar with proof of stake and proof of work and delegated proof of stake. So let me tell you a story. There used to be a coin called NXT. It's still around the top 100, but it's probably hitting 70 now on CoinMarketCap. It was their first proof of stake coin, fully proof of stake coin, fully remade code base, not a fork of Bitcoin. It came out about 8 months before Ethereum. It was full proof of stake at the time, and it had all kinds of built-in sort of token things. So it's sort of like counterparty. You can create your own token. You can send it here and there, and you can program the token and just do a lot of the stuff that people are doing on Ethereum today. But it wasn't like Turing complete. It was feature based, right? And I mean, have you ever heard of NXT?
Yeah, I have.
Right.
I haven't used it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah. So nobody. To my knowledge, nothing's happening there. It basically died.
Wasn't that the coin where there was actually some individual who was owed a bunch of coins after a hard fork, and he was actually posting up, I don't know if you heard about this, outside of every conference, every major conference, consensus. I don't think he was a DevCon, but he would post up, I believe with his daughter, with a huge sign saying, "You owe me this much money," because he didn't sign up, he didn't follow the steps he needed to secure his coins pre-hard fork, and then he wanted them retroactively. And the developers who apparently had access to it said, "Sorry, we can't do it." And so that's pretty much the main story I've heard around NXT, but I think it calls to mind an important thing, which is I feel like you have to follow this stuff day to day. You absolutely do. It's we're all pioneers. Everybody watching this, you, myself, everybody is pretty much at the front lines. And we don't have ways to get back our tokens if we mess up. We can't go to the bank and ask for it back. Maybe in the future we do. But right now, I think it's important that every single token you follow, if you're an investor, you're super invested in what's going on in that token. Bitcoin Cash right now, right? I mean, Bitcoin Cash that is right now, right? And we can jump into that. So what's going on, man? Yeah.
Before we get into that, let me give you. So because the proof of stake stuff is interesting. So my point there. That proof of stake alone is not a panacea. I don't really understand what they're trying to do. I guess they think that the proof of stake will be faster. Maybe it'll be faster. You're always limited by the speed of light. So I mean, 12-second blocks is pretty good. If you maybe they want to get to 3-second blocks. I don't know. I have no idea. But okay, so I guess they think it's faster, and maybe they're concerned with the environment. I guess that's the other reason why proof of stake is interesting. I think that I don't think that's really a valid critique of proof of work, but we can have that conversation. I don't know that solves any scalability issues. I heard that it's basically impossible to sync a full Ethereum node right now. I wonder about the security, the network security consequences of that. At what point is it possible to start doing network attacks on Ethereum because there's not enough nodes? Apparently proof of stake is an incentive to have more nodes, because right at the beginning, as I'm told, you're going to need to have 1,000 Ethereum locked up in order to be a staking node, and that gives you an incentive to host a full node. Granted, you're probably going to have either a server rack in your house or an AWS server, which, okay, AWS owns, how much of your network. So like this node topology stuff, I think is important. We'll definitely see it. I mean, if Ethereum keeps going in that direction, EOS is like the epic example of a centralized network from a topology perspective, which is how many nodes it has. Their governance model is purely kind of proof of stake democracy in a sense. So you're one token, one vote, and then you elect the block producers, which are the equivalent of the miners or the mining pools, and then
I
they kind
heard
of.
I heard an argument from Amin Gunsir actually at DevCon 4, and he had a good point. I mean, you have mining pools that also take a majority of the hash power when combined in Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's basically 4 mining pools in Bitcoin that control over 50% of the mining power, and on Ethereum, he said something like 7 mining pools. But on EOS, you actually have 21, so you'd actually have to convince 21 people. But on the other hand, there was a huge issue. What was it? A week after launch, and they had to have everybody on a phone call, which is kind of weird. we're talking about these futuristic systems that we're building. What's the point if we can just talk on the phone and decide without
figure it out? Yeah. So I think that's an improper comparison. So with and maybe so it's a complicated comparison, but basically with proof of work and pools, these are miners that are pointing their hashing power to a particular full node, and that's important. All the pool can do is signal one fork or the other, basically, in certain events, or block broadcast of blocks or whatever. But anything nasty that they do, the miners can just point the hashing power to a different pool. So it's liquid in that sense. And then you can say the same thing for the block producers on EOS, that the voters are liquid. Now, granted, they have to give a damn. And the reality, guaranteed, most EOS block holders have not voted. And those that voted are like the 20% that are passionately interested in the thing. And with miners, it's not like that. With miners, you gotta run hardware, and it's plugged in, and you got electricity costs, right? So the miners are usually they're probably a lot more sort of invested, like their attention is on the game. Whereas with proof of stake, I don't know that the voting will be legitimate. Like, it's really hard to get people to vote in voting systems. Dash has had trouble with it, and you can look at other projects that have had trouble getting people to vote with their tokens. And it's often hard, technically difficult, but even if it was easy, right? Even in normal democracies, to get like a 40%, 30% voting rate, 40% on adults is difficult, right? So I think with mining, it's probably different. I mean, we saw it during the fork, the Bitcoin fork, that like all the mining pools were, like, a lot of them were signaling for this or that thing and stuff. So I think there's some nuance there that you're not comparing apples to apples. I think the difference is there's 20 and maybe 100 full nodes for EOS at best, and these aren't full nodes like we think of a full node. These are like servers with like you gotta pay $1 million, I think a year or a month. Either way, even if it's a year, that's a lot of money for servers. And so these are data centers, right? That doesn't have the same liquidity. That's not the same level of decentralization as me running a full node on my laptop. And so it's disingenuous to pretend that they're decentralized. But it gets worse. Why does anybody care about security in EOS when they broke immutability about a week in? A week into EOS, 27 accounts got frozen, and this picture of a document started floating around Telegram saying like, this is the private settlement court of EOS. We have concluded that the following accounts are in violation of some security bylaw or whatever. So we have frozen them. We'll explain later. Literally, we'll explain later. And then and they froze them. So
Yeah, it's
there's
scary,
no,
man.
they already have a bureaucracy. They already have a basically an unelected or like, we don't even know who they are. Like, I didn't even know that they had a private court system. So there's no way they can scale that. I'm interested to see how they try to scale that court system, because now the question is, okay, great. Who is it? Who's the judge? And who do I gotta bribe or coerce in order to get them to give me somebody else's money in EOS, right? That's the reality of their security right now. And so I'm not saying I would do it, but that's the question that's sort of floating in the air. And so how they're going to scale that and secure that private justice system is fascinating. If you don't have immutability, what are you defending?
And it's a good point also, like that you bring up, like how much it costs to buy something, right? Because it would be harder to buy a proof of work network because you'd have to buy all these mining devices, and they run out, places run out of hardware. We saw it just last year. I couldn't find graphics cards on the shelves when I was trying to replace some cards in my own mining system. Whereas even in proof of stake, if you can somehow get access to liquidity just virtually online, it'd be easier for you to get a serious stake into a platform. So unless it's decentralized enough from the outset, it would be easier to buy a proof of stake system, no matter what, relative to a proof of work system. Just a thought there, for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So absolutely. Let's go ahead and jump over to unless you had final thoughts on that. Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash. Yeah.
The argument for proof of stake there is that as people try to buy stake to play the game, in a sense, the price would go up, and so it might go up faster than hardware, or maybe not. So there's a nuance there with proof of stake. So anyway, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think we can move on to Bitcoin Cash and all that drama now.
Yeah, and I did want to mention, I know that Ethereum did move, just like a side note, I know there's a lot of debate about the amount that you need to stake. So I believe the last estimate I heard was 32 Ether to stake. But then afterwards, I heard they were going to start higher than that, something like, I don't know, 500 to 250 Ether. So still, that's going to delegate power into just a small number of hands relative to normal token holders. So I want to point that out. So yeah, okay, so actually, before we get into Bitcoin Cash, and I guess we can lead into that way, let's talk about Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash, which was how I first got introduced to some of your thoughts over at Acapulco last year. Excellent debate. You guys should check it out. It was hosted by the Crypto Show on Acapulco, 2018, and it's fantastic. Juan Galt and Roger Ver, Jason King jumped in the middle of it. It was heated. It's like 2 hours of gold, but you'll enjoy every single moment if you care about Bitcoin history. So you took the side of the Bitcoin core argument, or the smaller block argument, and obviously Roger took the side of bigger blocks. So what do you think was your position on that debate leading into the hard fork that happened with Bitcoin that caused Bitcoin Cash to be born? Did you take the side of smaller or bigger blocks, and why did you do that?
Yeah, so my basic argument is that in order to scale, we have to make some kind of sacrifice. That's like built into the nature of the things. Like you have to make some sacrifice to grow, right? And the question is, do we sacrifice the network topology, the amount of nodes out there, and how easy it is for civilians to audit the accountability, like the full accounting of the network? Do we sacrifice that, right? So civilian ease of auditing of the network, or do we sacrifice, or do we sacrifice the node count, right? Hang on, this is a complex argument.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really complex argument, and it was about a year ago. So one of the small blockers say, yeah, we can sacrifice node count by making the block size bigger, and maybe the internet will catch up and it'll not be a problem, even though they're talking about 32 megabyte blocks, and Craig Wright wants to take the lid off completely, and Jihan Wu is like, no, hold on. Don't be too crazy. So now like the Bitcoin Cash people are actually making the Bitcoin core arguments against Craig Wright's coin, which is just amazing. I'm just loving it.
I bet, man. I bet. It's so weird. It's so weird to see that, right? Because apparently Roger now is going with the side against Bitcoin's original vision by implementing smart contracts and all these other use cases that weren't in the original argument that he had back last year when he wanted to increase the block size, which is Craig Wright's argument.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
He just came out and sort of went against Craig Wright. So he's now says like, maybe I got fooled by Craig Wright. It's like,
we lost you for a second there. Sorry. Okay. I think you're back.
Yeah. So, and then now Roger made a video about saying that maybe he got fooled by Craig Wright and kind of like disavowing Craig Wright. It's like,
Yeah. So you don't think Craig Wright is Satoshi?
No.
Do you think he's right with this vision? Sorry, real quick. Let me think. Professor Wally, welcome to the Bamily. Juan Galt, is the name Ayn Rand inspired? Does the question, who is Juan Galt, bring confusion, despair, or make you say, we are?
We are. We are Juan Galt.
Thanks, Professor Wally. We are Juan Galt. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that what do you stand between the Bitcoin ABC and the Bitcoin Satoshi Vision coin? And now I'm hearing Ryan X of yours.org talk about Unified Coin, because he operates his website, his social media site, completely on Bitcoin Cash. So he can't just be like Coinbase or Binance or Poloniex and say, oh, we're just going to stop that one chain for a little while, and they have low volume. We have to keep it running the whole time our whole site is down. So he'd rather just keep things as they are. But it looks like the community wants to split between, now it looks like 3 coins. I can't keep up.
It's incredible.
What do you think about between Satoshi Vision and ABC? Do you think do you have any particular thoughts on those, just based on a technical reason?
So I'm not following the technical details of the forks, like the actual technical debate. I'm not following it on Bitcoin Cash. My judgment is pretty simple. Anything that Craig Wright touches, guaranteed bullshit. I have no appreciation for him. I don't believe he's interested in the truth. And it's simple. As a cyberpunk, if you believe cryptography is important, which is like the fundamental of all these systems, you believe cryptography is important, and then there's a guy that claims to be the father of all this stuff, the Satoshi Nakamoto, the in a sense, yeah, it's like it's the person that had the most foresight and created a full industry that we're playing in. It's Satoshi Nakamoto, right? So this guy pretends to be Satoshi Nakamoto, and then fails to prove cryptographically that he is Satoshi Nakamoto, then gets about 300 patents on Bitcoin, allegedly, sells them to an American sort of sketchy, like some firm, for like $300 million, and then like, oh yeah, and gets the BBC to publish an article, and they never publish the proof, and then takes Gavin and Tristan with him. Like, this guy, you cannot come up with a bad guy. You cannot come up with a worse bad guy. Like, this is the archetype of the bad guy in Bitcoin. Like, if Bitcoin was a Batman movie, that guy's the Joker. Like, Joker's entertaining. He's not entertaining. This guy's like Darth Vader.
I feel you, man. I was huge into like Bitcoin Cash. Don't get me wrong. I was supporting the fork the whole way. But then like there was always that thing like, but Craig Wright is involved. Like, I don't know. Like, that's probably my biggest hesitation, no lie, about Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, Craig Wright is the black cat in the Matrix movie.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't think he's that wise though, because the email is like, I am Satoshi. Somebody said like, this is the kind of email that is written when you're drunk that you shouldn't send. Or people are now calling him a sociopath, but I don't know what that means, or that he has autism.
He's a human predator. Yeah, I'll go with Rick Falk. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. That's pretty much it with him. I would have to side with you. I don't think that he holds the community in the best way. And there was a GitHub repository that sprung up yesterday. I don't know if you saw that. I tweeted it out as well for everybody else. But it was basically a list of times that he has been a fraud, including plagiarized papers people have added to, including the fact that and articles, like his own mother says that he is prone to lying and all this other stuff. So I can't believe he still has people on his side. Yeah, that exists. It actually exists. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch routes here again. So let's talk about the market, right? Let's do that for a little bit. So you've been around for a while. You've seen ups and downs. Where do you think we are in the market cycle? You said you're bearish earlier. You said that word. Are you bearish specifically about the whole space? Anything in particular? Do you think we're consolidating now? Any thoughts around that?
Well, common wisdom would say that there's probably going to be another altcoin and token boom. I have a feeling we're not going to break the all-time high. Mainly because, like, how big can these things really get? Like, if you look at the total market cap of Amazon, it peaked at 1 trillion and then went down 30% to 700 billion, right? What's Ethereum at now? Like, probably like 60 billion. maybe 30 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like 30 billion. Bitcoin is at 100 billion. Bitcoin was almost at well, the whole market cap was the total in space market cap was almost at a trillion. Like if your coin has a bigger market cap or half the market cap of Facebook, but you have like less than 1% of the user base, then you've already topped, probably. I don't know that, like I don't know. I think we might be starting to reach the limit of this market. Maybe we'll puncture through the all-time high again on a variety of the altcoins and the tokens and stuff. But I don't think we have too many left. I think even in Bitcoin, in the best case scenario of Bitcoin, we maybe have another. Like, we probably have 100x to go, maybe 1,000x, maybe in like the next 20 years, 30
And
years.
is that because of like loss of like fiat confidence or economy crashing or something like that, and most of that going into the Bitcoin?
Yeah, like we went up from the bottom of the price in the past 5 years was like 230 right after it went to 1,000, and then we went from 230 to $20,000 in like 4 years. That's bottom to top. So okay, so that's a lot, right? That's probably like I don't know, 1,000x, and then but from the all-time high, the $1,000 all-time high to 20x, that's to 20,000, that's 20x, right? And then we crashed to 6,000. So from this bottom to like a million to $100,000 of Bitcoin, that's like that's another 20x, right? From $20,000 to $100,000, that's a 5x. So if it did a 20x from 20,000, did a 20x from 20,000, that would be like, well, 10x would be 2 million, so a $4 million Bitcoin, right? That would be a 20x, right? Now that would be a multi-trillion-dollar Bitcoin market cap, which is still not that much in the global financial system, right? As far as like the total coin, like, and we'd probably be one of the biggest currencies in the world. We would be competing with like the American dollar, and like we'd be starting to get up there, right? We're like a country number 60 in the ranking of I think it's like M2 supply or something like that. So, but at some point we're gonna start, I think, reaching the top. So we got another 100x, and then maybe another 10x, 100x. I don't know, but it's not gonna go on forever. Is what I'm saying, and and that's something that's trying to be currency. It's trying to be currency. So the things that are not trying to be currency, they're going to follow different economic sort of cycles. But then again, you can also see a lot of things have like a lot of these tokens maybe like they're if they function like bets, like anything that's a bet. I don't know. It's complicated. I think we need to distinguish between tokens, like calling them all cryptocurrencies. They're not cryptocurrencies. They're not currencies. Like, these things are not currencies. Most of them are not currencies. We shouldn't think of them as currencies. If they're equity, they're equity. If they're stock, they're stock, and you got to treat them as such. And Bitcoin's the only thing, in my opinion, that's really poised to be currency. Maybe Monero, maybe, but I don't think. I think you gotta look at them differently, right?
Yeah. So do you stand more with the currency side of things for Bitcoin, for sure, that it's going to be used for commerce, or that it'll be used as a store of value?
As a trader, depends what hat I'm wearing. As a trader, if I look at the price and it looks like a bottom, and the project, they're actually doing work and like they're actually moving forward, I'll give you one that I'm a fan of right now. It's called Tube.
What's it called? Sorry, we lost you.
I think, yeah. So I think the project's called BitTube, and the token ticker is called TUBE, and they're basically going straight for YouTube. They want to take out YouTube. They want to basically take over the people that are getting censored and tired of YouTube. So they just want to take over the market. If you go look at their website, it's a very nicely done website. They have they already have an infrastructure. They already have a lot of the video and distribution. They're smart. Like, go look at BitTube, and their token is pretty cheap right now. Like, I'm mining it. Full disclosure, I'm mining BitTube, and so there's coins like that. As a trader, I'm like, this is powerful. It could do a 10x, and then I'll get out, and I'll take out 50-60%, right? And those opportunities are going to continue. Whether we're going to like 10x the all-time high of this last pump, I don't know, right? It's possible.
So you said you're kind of like a strategist, right? So I'm obviously strategizing for yourself on what to mine and when to sell and all that. So that's your own personal strategy. But how do you approach your strategy with your clients, and what kind of clients do you get?
Yeah, so I try not to do investment advice with people. In general, I'm definitely always, they give the disclaimer, I'm not an investment advisor. Um, my strategy and what I tell people pretty much all the time is Bitcoin is the king, the biggest, the strongest, the most likely to win. And this is my opinion, my experience, and I hold like 70% of my wealth in Bitcoin, and the rest is tokens and fiat and silver, right? And so that's the position from an investment advice, and then the rest is just crypto security, sort of how to store it and keep it, Um, so yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I invite everybody to hit the like if you're enjoying the stream. We got 900 people in the stream, which is not insubstantial in this kind of bear market where we've lost, obviously, a lot of interest. So also, if you have any questions for Juan, feel free to ask me here in the stream, and I'll pass them forward for him.
Well, let me say this. So for people that are like, let's say there's probably a good amount of people in the stream right now that are bag holding some token or another, right? Myself included. I'm bag holding a few things. If you got any projects that you're holding tokens in that you are not sure about, go get involved. Obviously, if you're not doing it already, go get involved and see how you can help push them forward and move them forward. And if you see that there's no real action, then now at least you have information you can make a decision on, right? That doesn't mean it's not going to pump. The reality of this market is things pump, and they pump in waves, and they all pump together, right? So if you buy cheap enough, like this is probably the case. Like right now, if you threw $1,000 at the top 100 coins that look like the bottom, you're probably going to do a 10x, 20x, right? Statistically speaking, without even looking at the fundamentals. But if it's a good project, the chances of it rising to the top 100, let's say it's a top 600, 400 ranked coin on CoinMarketCap. If it's a good project, its chances, and it's got good backers, and they're moving forward, and they're strong, chances of it that it'll get to the top of CoinMarketCap, or like to the top 100 of CoinMarketCap are good, and that's a 10x, 20x. And so this is a complicated game. You never know what's going to happen. The best you can do is take up low risks and high reward bets and hedge them. And that's a game theoretical strategic sort of mindset that's not talking at all about the fundamentals, really, or not much anyway.
Yeah, it's tricky, right? Like trying to figure out what the fundamentals are, especially as somebody who did a lot of due diligence, and you saw like crap coins or whatever you want to call them to shoot to the moon, and it's like, damn, like how did that get up there? Because speculation is such a big role in this. But for you, Juan, and then I'll ask some of the questions people are beginning to bring in. What do you use for market analysis for yourself? How do you gauge what's going on and where to get in, when to get out? What tools do you use to stay on the pulse of crypto?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I did a lot of trading the past 2 years, and then I've kind of slowed down on trading. But I don't know, some of it is instinct. Some of it is just looking at the price, right? Like if it looks like a bottom, like we kind of know what a bottom is. We know that most things right now have probably bottomed. There might be another 50% that they can lose, but that's kind of insignificant compared to the upside potential if they do go up. So right now it seems to me like we're pretty close to the bottom. That goes for Bitcoin and Ethereum and most tokens. I think Ethereum's still probably going to pump no matter what. If the fork happens, we're going to have 3 Ethereums guaranteed, because the miners are going to want to stick around and keep mining their thing. So they're either going to go to Ethereum Classic, or they're going to keep Ethereum Core, and then there's going to be a new Ethereum, and then the other one's going to be called Ethereum Proof of Work or something. And it's going to be hilarious. I don't know exactly, but like that fork is going to pump the price of Ethereum. And so right now it's probably not a bad time to buy Ethereum. Again, not investment advice. I just look at TradingView, the charts, and then I listen to the hype, right? So like if people are talking about this, like this whole Q initiative, right? I mean,
Please inform us about Initiative Q. I've just heard about it, but like something about it just says like scammy. But I've done that before, right? So so I ignore it. So what is this whole thing? Everybody's talking, what is Initiative Q? Is it another FOMO 3D? What is going on here?
Basically, it's probably some sort of FOMO 3D. So here's the story. The narrative is these are 2 early PayPal executives that have launched their own coin, and it's not a cryptocurrency. It's not decentralized. It's not. It doesn't have a limited supply. But it's a great payment system, and it's going to be cheaper, and they're going to have better fraud prevention. And they're doing the only way that they can potentially actually become useful is if everybody's using them, merchant providers and users, so that they can solve the chicken and the egg problem of currency. And so that's why they're doing this like viral aggressive marketing campaign that's a two-tier MLM, where you sign up, you get coins, and then the guy that signed you up gets coins, and then you get somebody else and they get coins, and you get coins too if you get them in. And it's a two-tier thing. So it's you and the person below you. And
like a BitConnect, where they can kind of create their own tokens to keep the pyramid scheme afloat even longer.
They definitely can create their own tokens. They can probably do it for a long time. Nobody's buying the token because I don't know that you can even buy it right now, to my knowledge. You can just do things for them. So that's interesting. It's sort of like a, you do promotion for them and then you get tokens. I have no idea any deeper than that. Like, I don't know if there's other things you can provide, or I don't think they're tradable yet. The bottom line risk for every user is if it goes to shit or if it fails, well, you gave your email to somebody, they're going to spam you. And so just give them a shit email and then get some tokens. I mean, that's probably the best strategy. You got nothing to lose other than your email.
Right? Yeah, make a new one.
Just make a fresh email and give it to them. And then you get some coins, and if they go anywhere, cool, you get some money, and the dump is going to be legendary. Like, if this thing hits the market, like if it ends up in Binance, the price is going to go like this. Go whoop, and because people are just going to start throwing it to the ground. And I think it's probably going to be like Zcash. I don't know if you remember the Zcash when Zcash was born. It was so good. It was like the rate of emission of the Zcash token was very, very small.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Zcash, yeah.
Difficulty was high or something like that. So there was very, very little liquidity. And so it hit the market.
Dude, I was mining actually Zcash the minute it came out. Like, I was trying to mine it. So I set up a whole Linux mining rig on Ubuntu, literally my first time. And I was so stoked to finally get some Zcash, right? So I was like, this thing is going to be huge, right? Zero knowledge range proofs, first time, privacy, massive. And so I was literally mining it. And then you're right. It took me like 24 hours to earn 0.0001 Zcash. And I was so upset, man. And you're right. It's because it had this weird ramping up inflation rate where like it would take 2 weeks before it would get to the normal inflation rate. But it was so problematic from a mining perspective. It was terrible.
Yes, I mean, it was basically like there was no liquidity. Like there was almost no coins in the market and a huge amount of hype. And so the price in the exchanges just went like, it got to like a $3 million for one token. That was the top peak price. And then it just went, and it's been between $100 and $500 ever since. Yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah.
All right, let me field some of these questions from the audience. So, Tom Wonderlin wants to know what your thoughts are on silver, and if you want, you can also talk about gold and maybe even compare it to crypto.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a bunch of friends that are silver bugs that have a lot of silver. They're usually not as bullish on gold. The argument is something like silver is very used in the industry and it's already really hard to get, and it's much more likely to pump than gold, and it's 100 to 1 to the price what it used to be or something like that. It's usually basically it's highly undervalued compared to gold, and if you look at the history, it should be like a lot higher compared to gold. And so I mean, people that I respect have big bags in silver, so I just have some silver just in case, but that would be the extent of it.
Yeah. Do you think that they're more interesting, perhaps, like cryptocurrency relative to precious metals, or do you think that they should definitely be in everybody's portfolio?
I mean, from a pure strategic perspective, like, why not have some silver? Like, it makes sense, you know, just have like 10% or 5% or 15%. I like silver. I think silver's probably good to have. You know, if shit hits the fan, let's say in, you know, some sort of semi-apocalyptic scenario, people will know what silver is. People won't know what crypto is unless we get to the point where Bitcoin reaches that level. And it's not going to be some altcoin. It's not going to be your rank 56 altcoin that's gonna let you buy food. It's gonna be Bitcoin, right?
Pyramid coin. Yeah. Woo!
Aurora coin will not save you during the apocalypse.
I don't know,
Maybe Pepe,
man.
maybe Pepe Cash
Pepe Cash.
or
Okay.
Dogecoin.
Or Dogecoin. Well, any of these meme coins.
Save you during the apocalypse.
Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna go ahead and skip Robert K here. Thanks for the donation, man. To the front. Thanks for the 5, man. So he wants to know, what are your thoughts on Decentraland? Have you looked into the Mana coin at all?
I have not looked at Mana coin. I have had a peek at Decentraland. Is it all virtual? It's like virtual land.
Yeah, it's like a virtual reality space where you can buy real estate on it, and they auctioned off the land earlier, I believe. You had to use some sort of coin to buy it. But I guess the hope would be that in the future it would be like a Second Life where people, yeah, virtually can sell goods and clothing that are designed by them on this virtual reality space.
That's really cool. I mean, anything crypto and gaming and would be interesting. That kind of project would let us gain a great amount of data on property rights and like sort of libertarian kind of society building. So that's interesting from like a study perspective and knowing what might work in reality, because we're very idealistic. People in crypto are very idealistic, and we're looking for a space in which we can apply our ideals. Go apply them in Decentraland and see how it goes.
Yeah, man. I mean, a lot of people use Second Life. I used to play this game called There when I was like, I don't know, probably 15 years old. And I had this dude who had a radio station inside of his virtual space. And I used to man his radio station and earn in-game currency that I could sell for real dollars. Granted, it was petty, but you have these huge like virtual economies that you're right, I don't think we can discount, and they're extremely interesting, maybe related to cryptocurrency. Okay, Matthias wants to know, Matthias Ricciardo, thank you for the donation. What's Juan's opinion on Cardano? What do you think about Cardano? Yeah.
I don't know. Charles Hopkinson is an interesting character. I enjoy his rants and his. I like that he does like kind of like compares Greek mythology and certain myths and stuff to like crypto. Like he called blockchains an Old Testament god. Pretty hardcore. It's like, yeah, if you don't have the keys, too bad. There's no forgiveness here. You're just fucked. I like him as a character. I don't know. Where is Cardano? Where's the coin? I traded it for a moment and I got bored. Where's the community, or where's the technology? Did they launch already? I think it's still on the RC20 token. 80% of the volume on Binance. There's no project. Where's the technology? I have no idea. I think a lot of these Ethereum sort of smart contract blockchain plays, I don't know where they're going to go. I think if people are trying to create a crypto stock market where they can trade security tokens or do like non-voting stock shares, or if that's what people want, if that's where the demand is, programmable stocks or programmable securities, cool. Let's look for a platform that does that. I don't know if Cardano is it or it's not. I have no idea. I know that there's one called Ravencoin that sort of kind of popped up, like did a big moon recently. I was mining it too, and I heard about it. I just kind of rode the hype. But I don't know about the fundamentals. They haven't launched, so like I don't know what's there to see. But I know a lot of people are into it.
Supposedly they launched their token on their blockchain, but it doesn't have the smart contracts that are anticipated till later on. And I think that's the most exciting part about it, because we can just get tokens anywhere.
Yes, I mean, and Ethereum has the vast majority of development action and community, right? Like, have you ever heard of a Cardano meetup in your town? Probably not. Ethereum has a huge, like, it has better community building than Bitcoin. Honestly, it was a lot easier to find Ethereum people than Bitcoin people. I've been in 7 countries this year, like 30 cities. It's a lot easier to find Ethereum people than it is Bitcoin people. That doesn't mean that to me means that the community building is better. I don't know what else it might mean, but at the end of the day, you have to get developers in. I think EO seems to have a lot more hype, but it's also such a weird project that I don't even know. I don't really have that. That's the extent of my opinion on it. I'm sorry, I'm not very helpful, but
no, it's no worries. We can't all keep track of all the different coins. So let me start with Barry here. Barry Dutton, shout out to Barry, wants to know, in your travels, what's the best liberty-based place to live these days? Obviously, you're all about freedom. You were in Acapulco. I would assume you're kind of red-pilled, man. So what's a good place to live for that freedom?
I would imagine New Hampshire. I haven't been to New Hampshire for a while. It's been a few years, but I would imagine from like a network effect sort of thing, New Hampshire. They probably have a lot more people, a lot more crypto people. Acapulco's good for the conference. If you want to be on the beach and just kind of get away from society, you can do it there pretty cheaply. And there'll probably be 20 to 30 crypto anarchists, ANCAP types there you can meet and drink and chill with. But it's not that many people. And if you want to be engaged in society and stuff, you can do it online there very cheaply and have a good time. But it's not going to be a place where you can, there's not going to be businesses that you can go and work with. There's not an industry there. There's probably an industry in New Hampshire. I know that Prague is really cool. There's a lot of sort of crypto anarchist types and a lot of Swedish ANCAPs. I have a variety of friends in Prague.
They have
Treasure's based out of there.
Yeah, they have the School for Crypto Anarchists, a University for Crypto Anarchists, I believe, hold a conference out there, and they're actually based there.
The Institute of Crypto Anarchy. So I actually have the bracelet right there, Institute of Crypto Anarchy.
Nice.
They're fantastic. They're very good to me. They have a great hacker space. By the way, this is one thing that Amir Taki said during his talk with Vlad about how to reorient things towards something more useful. And he said, we need more institutes. We need the academy back. We don't have an academy. A lot of us that are in the crypto space are people that have felt disenfranchised by academia. We're very smart. We're systems thinkers. We are driven and motivated, and we're cool with money and stuff. But there's no academy that can help us reach our full potential because academia today has, to some degree, failed the populace, right? And that's definitely my story, and apparently that's Amir's story and Vlad's story. And so I think anything that's a hacker space, like getting a hacker space, getting your crypto friends in your city, and then just start a hacker space, you'll have your ANCAP haven right there. You will attract them. There's a very good one in Vancouver called Decontrol. It used to be called Decentral. Funny story related to the Decentral in Toronto, which you can look up. But Decontrol is fantastic. They have like 7-8 years of experience in history. They have VR and a huge amount of like very, very high talent people like Google, ex developer from Google, ex Amazon developer. It's a great place. And then they have like the whole decentralized dance party. I'm a huge fan of the Vancouver crypto scene. Big fan. If I was going to go anywhere and live, it would probably be Vancouver during the summer and even the winter because it's not bad temperature. It's an expensive city. Real estate is very expensive there. Rent is very expensive. So that's the problem. But
Yeah, that's a good answer, man. Thank you for like
hitting
all corners of the globe.
Yeah, Phoenix is actually very interesting. As a city, it's a very interesting place. There's a lot of old school crypto people there. There's a variety of projects. So Nexus, which is one of the cryptocurrencies, trying to do like space, internet 3.0 stuff. Very ambitious project, very big project. So they're out of there. And then they have a pizza shop called Bitcoin Pizza, and there's some serious OGs there, man. Yeah, I don't know if you heard about like a guy called Morpheus, which is like a local Bitcoin trader that ended up going to jail because he moved too much money, and so he was like in that crowd. So these guys are like old school Bitcoin people, and a lot of crypto people. Hal Finney lived in Phoenix, and is buried in Phoenix, or he lived around Phoenix. So that's an interesting city to check out for crypto as well.
Yeah, I think Dash is out there as well, right? Right next to the PayPal office.
I believe they have
Yeah. So, okay. Will Ethereum, this is Jonathan Cornish, will Ethereum be the top public blockchain in the years to come?
No. But we'll probably keep spot number 2.
All right. I'll take it personally. Okay. Josh Rampart wants to know, what are your thoughts on Blockchain LLC, the smart city with Tesla development and Warren Buffett as initial investors? I think Google's also involved. A lot of the Ethereum people are beginning to involve. OGs get involved. What do you think about that project?
It's a power move. I love it. I mean, I was thinking, I was with a startup, a real estate startup, trying to do something like this earlier this year, and I don't know, we just didn't have the right. I don't know. We didn't get past the initial funding. We didn't try to do. I don't know where they're at. We'll see what happens with them. But anyway, we saw the opportunity to create a new city and start it from scratch, because the infrastructure in the cities that we live in, a lot of these cities were created, 200, 300, 400 years ago, in another world for another era, and the politics are to some degree molded from that environment. So today we have the wealth and the ambition to create a new city, and the location's great. It's in between Elon Musk's sort of battery farms, Google's data center, massive data center, and Burning Man. You're gonna
What a
have
good time.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man, yeah. Thank you.
Check it out and get a piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's such a good point. We started cities a long time ago. Why can't we do it again now with all the wealth that we have in a good location that's built from the ground up for blockchain and by blockchain,
And
literally.
wait, if you think you know how to change the world, go and try to start a city, and you will be humbled. You'll be profoundly humbled by the complexity of property rights management in a city or a town, and how to deal with the environment, and how to deal with complex and conflict resolution, and it's a rabbit hole. So if you're interested in it, go for it. Try it, explore it. I think it's gonna be good for everybody's to kind of get their naivety a little bit more nuanced, and then maybe we can build something cool anyway. So like the money's there, why not?
Yeah, man, I feel like you've looked into that a lot. People probably should hit you up for city building strategy to figure out some of your thoughts.
I do consulting. Hit me up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've hit up already quite a wide range of topics, but I wanted to ask you, you've been traveling a lot recently. You've been to hacker conferences, a bunch of events at DevCon. What are some of the more interesting things that you've learned recently that come to mind?
Yeah. So I think the Lightning Network in Bitcoin, I think it's going to be good. I think we're going to see a very interesting environment rise around it. There's this sort of watchtowers concept, which means people that you can sort of you'll pay to keep an eye on the balance, so that you don't have to be online all the time yourself. It's a technicality. People won't see it. It would be kind of like equivalent. It'll be somewhat like an ISP service provider. There's probably gonna be more of them than there are ISPs and ISP companies. I'm looking at becoming one of them. I think Lightning Network is going to be the next wave of mainstream adoption. So if you look at the way that what happens when the price goes parabolic, what usually stops the parabolic rise is some big drama. So empty GOX goes boom, and the FUD of empty GOX peaks, and then the market crashes. And the last round was the transaction fees got too high because it wasn't really to scale. So we just hit the top of scalability. Before, empty GOX was the scalability, and that failed. And now it was Bitcoin's sort of internal scaling conflict and how that held it back for 2 to 3 years. And so the next time we moon, we're gonna try to find the maximum. How far can we take this? The edge of the support of this thing. We're gonna hit that, and then we're gonna normalize. And I think Lightning Network is going to be some of that, and maybe some Ethereum contracts, some Ethereum projects are going to do something. Again, like the utility token stuff is a problem. Here's some cool ideas that I've been thinking about and exploring around this tokens idea, because the tokens are cool. Like, I like tokens, but finding the right form for them is tricky. So instead of trying to do utility tokens, why don't we think about tokens as like tickets to a private space? For example, conferences. So instead of like you paying for a conference in Bitcoin or Ethereum and getting some PDF image or whatever that you gotta have, and if you want to trade it, you gotta get permission from the conference. Why don't we just do like temporary tokens as tickets for conferences? Then they're fungible, so I can move them around. And once I get there, I just send it back to the teller at the thing, and then just put a thing on my hand, and I'm in, and the token is no longer valid. It goes back to the source, right? Something like that. I think that stuff can be cool. Obviously, the non-fungible tokens, like that are art, sort of tokenized art, that's interesting. I think as a reputation token, right? So like if we can do like, I think that the identity stuff is interesting. I don't know where. Okay, so one of the most interesting projects I like right now is Keybase. Keybase is a social network started by the OkCupid people. Never done any marketing, never done an ICO. They have a functioning full team management, sort of administrative management for your own private team. You can bootstrap teams, sort of like in Telegram, you can make groups. It's end-to-end encrypted group chat and private chat. and it grabs the public keys of this encryption, and it creates a Merkle root and authenticates it against Bitcoin. So you're leveraging Bitcoin security for the authentication of the public keys to make sure there's not man-in-the-middle attacks. And then your identity, you can publish your identity, like you can broadcast that you're on Keybase on Facebook, Twitter, a bunch of different social networks, so you can basically bring value to this identity. I think that has the best chance I've seen of any identity projects to become like an internet identity that you can sort of carry across networks. And if we can build tokens, if we can build a reputation around identities, I don't know. I'm just kind of like ranting at this point, but
it's
I
cool,
think
man.
we break out of the utility token. And security tokens are cool, but I think we need to get more creative with the tokens, and it'll take time,
Yeah. And I just want to ask two last questions of you, Juan, and I want to remind everybody, I deeply appreciate you guys making it out. Thank you. And thank you, Juan, because you've been killing it. We had a lot of viewers. Obviously, whatever you're saying is quite fascinating for people, and your mind can rant on about any subject forever, way beyond just Bitcoin. So your breadth of knowledge extends quite far, man, and I appreciated having you. But let me ask you, what is your best what's your best piece of advice for somebody, just as a person? What is something that has impacted you and taught and changed the way you look at life or approach things, and as a businessman, as a person?
I think the most positive impact that I've had in the past 2 years was the work of Jordan Peterson. I don't know. You've
12
probably
Rules
heard
for
of
Life.
him. 12 Rules for Life. Just get that book. Just read that book. Your life will be dramatically changed, for the better, in a good way. I think that I was stuck in a kind of sort of radical ideological sort of mindset for the past 10 years, and I did a lot of cool shit, and it was good for me. But in a sense, I'm kind of like snapping out of it now. I think it's important to be more consciously engaged in the conversation and in the problem you're dealing with, rather than build a bunch of conclusions and then anything that looks like it, just throw the conclusions at it. This whole NPC meme that went viral on Twitter and then a bunch of people got banned. That's what this is about. Is people form conclusions, and then anything that kind of looks like it, they just throw the conclusion at it, right? That's being robotic. You want to be conscious, and you want to be yourself in the moment, rather than yourself a year ago when you concluded it. So I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But that book is a very good read, and it'll really help you see a lot more clearly and have a much more meaningful life. It's really what it's about. Having a more meaningful life, doing more meaningful things.
Yeah, absolutely. He touches on a lot. Obviously, the first chapter stood out for me quite a bit. About carrying your stuff, your posture, confidence, right? Serotonin being released more when your body kind of resembles that. So, and the lobster analogy was fantastic. So you guys should totally check out Jordan Peterson's book and work. Okay, and you had a good point also about kind of having conclusions and trying to get there already. So you're basically finding the answer for yourself and just finding reasons to validate what you already thought. And that's not really growth, I would argue, so much. Maybe just more vertical, I guess, source references for what you already know. But it's kind of like there's apparently most people who go to YouTube, research found out, just to research how to learn something new, right? So they kind of already knew what they wanted to research, and they log into YouTube and search for exactly what it was that they had already wanted to learn, right? How to tie a tie. These are the videos that get the most hits. And I think that that's true for a lot of people in pretty much everything we do. It's just probably normal for humanity to want to validate what they already know, or just look for what they want to learn more about. But it may be staying open and present, you're right, is a great way to approach things differently and expand those horizons. So awesome, man. And last question for the night. Do you like having anchovies on your Caesar salad?
Yes.
Yeah, you do? Why? Why?
I don't know. It's trying new things. That sounds interesting.
Oh, you haven't done it before?
I think so. I don't think I have anchovies on my Caesar salad. Yeah.
Or like in the dressing, yeah. Apparently the traditional one.
That I should not Google.
Yeah. Well, if I see it, I don't know, man. I should probably find you at Acapulco, and we should have lunch and find a place that has anchovies and Caesar salad, and you can have it. And I'll just like record your face and take a picture for Instagram.
Let's do it.
Alrighty. Thank you everybody so much for making it out. I do appreciate you. One last time, I would appreciate if you hit the like. It helps other people find this video, and it helps the conversation get stronger, I would say, and more conscious. The more I get from you, the more I can give back, so it'll keep getting better. Take care, guys. Much love. Thank you, Juan, for making it out again one last time. You rock, dude.
We're just running out. Love you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And take care. Stay cryptic. Peace.
Bye.
Yeah.